Alright, so I'm well aware that I'm one of only maybe 5 or 6 people that actually bought a Wii U back in the day, but for any of those elite few of you in the audience who also happen to own an original Wii before experiencing loneliness for the first time, do you remember those little guys from the system transfer animation? The one that carried your files across cyberspace to your new console? Well, as it turns out, they were actually from a game franchise. They're called Pikmin, and now you can have them on your phone, but more importantly, on your GameCube. These lovable little plant things were originally created as a tech demo to show off the power of the new hardware, but they've since gone on to grace every Nintendo home console since their inception, including the Switch, where just a couple of years ago, we were blessed with full-on HD remasters of the first and second games to celebrate the release of Pikmin 4. This is a series that I've always been interested in diving into, and seeing as how it's now more accessible than ever, I see no reason why I shouldn't. So let's fire up the old Switch 2 so I can give you my official take on Pikmin 1, which is what the HD remaster is called. Pikmin 1 is told from the perspective of certified Short King and native to the planet Hakotate, Captain Olimar. His interstellar vacation goes awry when he finds himself crash-landed on an alien planet, and he quickly discovers that he only has 30 days to recover the parts he needs to repair his ship before his life support system fails and he succumbs to the deadly oxygen-rich atmosphere. Thankfully, Olimar quickly uncovers a subservient species of plant-like partners, the Pikmin, who he summarily enslaves and enlists in his mission to recover all 30 of his ship parts before time runs out. You control Captain Olimar from a third-person perspective, as he in turn controls the Pikmin by leading them around, issuing commands, or just chucking them towards danger if the situation calls for it. This game wastes very little time before chucking you into the action either though, with only a brief cutscene standing between you and the landing zone, a tutorial area that should familiarize you with most of the title's basics. Captain Olimar himself is pretty much completely useless, but thankfully the industrious Pik people have made it their mission in life to pick up and carry anything they can get their hands on and drag it back to the camp. You start with only a single companion, but by bringing things like pieces of plants back to one of these onions, you can turn them into seeds that will quickly, and I mean very quickly, sprout into the next generation of Pikmin. Your numbers expand rapidly, which is good because certain items require a certain number of teammates to interact with, although once you have enough, the more the merrier. It's always nice for things to move a little quicker. Your main objective is of course to track down and recover all 30 pieces of your ship, the Dolphin, but in order to do so, you'll need to explore the mysterious planet and contend with a healthy assortment of both environmental obstacles and less than hospitable wildlife. The native fauna on planet Pikmin are all incredibly hostile to this game's titular species, with essentially every single creature you'll encounter acting as a predator to them in one way or another. Thankfully though, there's strength in numbers, and with a little guidance from the player, even the most intimidating aggressors can be brought down and used to fuel the expansion of your army. Environmental obstacles can be tackled in much the same way, meaning clearing out vines so you can more effectively canvas an area shouldn't be too much of a concern, although some roadblocks will require a little more consideration, something we'll talk about later. As you gradually collect parts and repair your ship, the range of the Dolphin will be expanded, allowing you to reach even further parts of the planet. From here, the core gameplay loop becomes clear. You'll land in an area, begin clearing pathways and taking down enemies for easier traversal, and finally begin the process of dragging anything valuable back to your base. Really, the only thing holding you back is time. As mentioned previously, you only have 30 days to explore the planet before your life support system fails, and as such, this game operates on a day system. At the beginning of each expedition, you'll choose the area you want to dedicate your time to for that period, and you'll have roughly 13 minutes to do whatever you need to do before the sun sets and it's time to return to your ship. Not only is this a really interesting mechanic, it's also really well executed. Pikmin is a real-time strategy game, so your primary focus should and will be on trying to manage your time well to make the most of what little you have. Before we can manage our time wisely though, we'll first need to manage our Pikmin. Yeah, as you'll quickly discover, not all Pikmin are made the same. While you initially start out with just one color, red, as you traverse further worlds, you'll eventually uncover yellow and blue Pikmin and harness their unique abilities. Red Pikmin, far from being your basic all-rounders, are actually quite specialized themselves, being immune to fire, and more importantly, being the best at combat, dealing significantly more damage to enemies. Yellow Pikmin can be thrown much higher, allowing them to reach areas that others can't, and keyly, they're able to carry bombs that can then be used in combat, but more usefully to clear certain obstacles. Finally, blue Pikmin don't disintegrate when they make contact with water, which is extremely useful. Having more than one type of companion at your disposal leads to even more opportunities for strategic thinking. You can only have 100 Pikmin on the field at the time, and this includes those that are still growing, so not only do you need to think deeply about what kind of Pikmin are best suited to perform a specific task, you also need to keep a watchful eye on your population numbers, ensuring that each color gets an equitable split of the spoils to combat losses in battle and to sustain further growth. Interestingly, the longer a Pikmin spins in the ground, the more developed it becomes, with fully bloomed Pikmin traveling faster and carrying things more quickly, which also makes for an interesting trade-off when it comes to harvesting new recruits immediately to make room versus giving them some time to develop. In all, you'll only explore a total of 4 distinct areas across the mysterious planet, but they offer more than enough variety to keep things feeling interesting. Visually, I find this game to be very appealing, and the HD remaster does a pretty good job of bringing it into the modern era. Objectively, sure, I could admit that the fact that the grass texture is just the exact same low-quality JPEG they used on the GameCube is notably lazy, but in addition to it being hilarious, there's something about it that I find endearingly authentic. This is just the GameCube game, like you would have experienced it back in the day, just now with the benefit of HD and widescreen, in addition to a couple of quality of life features. This is a title that has already aged very well visually, with a charming art style that will certainly continue to stand the test of time. A lot of effort was clearly put into the sound design as well, with Pikmin having a very unique audio signature that makes it stand out from other games. I really like the design of the enemies in particular. They do a great job of feeling alien while still coming off as grounded enough to fit the setting, and they're all visually appealing while managing to seem intimidating when they need to. What really brings everything together though is the excellent level design. You can tell that each area of this game was carefully crafted to maximize its effectiveness as a stage within certain space constraints. The areas feel dense and full of things to uncover, but they also aren't too overwhelming on a first visit. What's great is that the approach you take to tackling an area is just completely wide open. You can head in any direction and tackle things in whatever order you want. You can completely neglect ship parts for entire days and still be super productive, or you can opt to beeline for the next area and come back for cleanup later. Once Pikmin are given a job, they can work semi-autonomously for quite some time without any input from the player, so it's really up to you how thin you think you can spread yourself without compromising on efficiency. The real-time strategy loop of this game is just masterful. It's extremely addicting. Once you pick up your controller for a session, it's almost impossible to set down, with the constant pace at which tasks are completed and the relatively short length of days making it extremely easy to just one more level yourself into oblivion. Something that I found really cool is that despite the fact that each new day generally acts like a reset, your progress on tasks generally remains. If you knock down some vines, for instance, they're gone forever, meaning that pathway is permanently open even if you don't choose to utilize it immediately. Realizing and taking advantage of this can greatly decrease the amount of time you need to spend in areas, especially in certain stages where it behooves you to fully utilize all of the bombs you have available to you each day in order to greatly decrease the distance your Pikmin need to carry things. Enemies generally stay dead as well, which is awesome because it makes for such a satisfying feeling of accomplishment as you clear out an area of hazards and are able to move around more freely. The only complaint I really had in this regard is that while removing stage obstacles is completely permanent and enemies don't respawn between subsequent days in the same area, they will respawn if you leave an area and then come back. And since clearing out enemies can be a pretty significant portion of what you dedicate your time to in a level, this makes backtracking pretty suboptimal. I can almost see this being intentional, as you are required to backtrack to the Forest of Hope at least once, and maybe this was intended to make that feel a bit more substantial, but the same thing happens when you reload from a previous save, which is super annoying. And in general, it seems like this is more of an oversight that serves to limit the amount of practically viable approaches there are to doing everything. Beating Pikmin is not particularly difficult. The game ends automatically once you hit day 30, or once you collect all 30 parts and rebuild the dolphin. You actually only need to collect 25 parts to avoid getting the bad ending, but as a completionist, collecting everything really isn't much to ask for. I managed to snag 100% by just day 25 on my first playthrough, which earns you the good ending and lets you see the actual end credits. Hooray for doing everything. Given the time-based nature of the title, it's going to take you at most maybe 8 hours to get through, whether you like it or not. One of my favorite parts about Pikmin though is that it's near infinitely replayable. In fact, I'd say it's one of those games that demands at least one replay. So much of the fun from this title comes from optimizing metrics. Once you're familiar with the stages, it becomes so obvious how many things you could have done better the first time around. And if you're anything like me, you just can't help but want to push that day counter a little lower. The game explicitly encourages this too, which is awesome, giving you a readout of your top 5 playthroughs and offering a clear metric of progress. What's really cool too though is that you get much more comprehensive statistics than just day counts, with the title providing you really detailed metrics about your Pikmin totals and changes in the population over time. Not only does this give you another stat to potentially optimize for, but in some ways, at least some of these objectives are diametrically opposed, so you get to choose what's important to you, opening the potential for even more unique playthroughs. If all of that isn't enough though, Pikmin does considerably offer a challenge mode. This is a neat little way to dive back into individual levels and compete with yourself for a high score, but for me, it was much more of a novelty than anything, with the main game already offering so much replayability that by the end, I had finished 4 complete playthroughs, with most of them being on my own time just because it's so much fun. I had a really good time 100% completing Pikmin. It's a super unique little title that I didn't know if I would enjoy or not, but that ultimately blew me away and left me ready for more. Additionally, Pikmin 1 on the Switch did not disappoint. While it might not be super ambitious, I have 0 complaints about this HD remaster, and I definitely think it's the definitive way to experience this classic. It may be a little pricey for what it is, but what Nintendo game isn't? If this is the kind of experience I can expect from the rest of the franchise, then I feel like I have a lot to look forward to, but that'll have to wait until next time, I guess. I can't wait to dive in to Pikmin 2. And I hope to see you there when that happens. Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. I tried to keep this one concise. How'd I do? I'm really bad at gauging video length. Hey, at least I got something out around Christmas though. I feel like I deserve some credit for that. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I would really appreciate it if you could drop a like and get subscribed so you don't miss the next time I take a look at the series. Additionally, I have been making a little bit of a go at social media again, don't expect much, but if you're interested, it would be really cool if you could check it out. It's all linked down in the description below. Finally, for those of you that care, that's the same place that you can find any of the music that I used in this video. I think that's all I have for you today, but I hope to see you in the next one, and as always, thanks for watching.